A very good evening to you. You're watching Primetime News on News First. I'm Saturanga Hapuarachi.
And I'm Dasniya Thada. Let's start off with a look at tonight's headlines.
An interim injunction issued saying the implementation of the delimitation gazette on local government elections. Parliament heats up over further delay in local government elections. Special expose on the Foreign Exchange Act.
The Court of Appeal today issued an interim injunction staying the implementation of the delimitation gazette notification issued by the Minister of Provincial Councils and Local Government until the 4th of December. The order was issued taking into consideration a writ petition filed by 6 voters.
The order was issued by the 3-judge bench comprising of Court of Appeal President LTD Dehidenia and Justices Shiran Gunaratna and Kumudini Vikramasinghe. The interim injunction was issued against Minister of Provincial Councils and Local Government Faisal Mustafa and Secretary to the Ministry. The court also ordered notices to be issued for the respondents to appear before court on the 4th of December. As the chairman of the Elections Commission, the only thing I have to say about the court order issued today is that there is absolutely nothing to say about it. Any matter related to this or any other issue can only be discussed at the weekly meeting held at the Elections Commission. The next meeting will be held on the 25th of November.
If a policy is to be changed, what should the government do? The government seems to be famous for stepping outside of procedure and enacting laws. Some of the policies that the government makes, some of the decisions the government takes, is it really for the benefit of the people, or is it really for the benefit of the members, the ministers of this government? We have an in-depth analysis today about what the government is trying to do when it comes to enacting new laws. In particular, the Foreign Exchange Act. What is happening? We have Ramesh Irugal Bandara and Farah Shaukat Ali joining us from the studios. Ramesh, over to you.
Well, thank you, Chaturanga. First of all, we are going to focus on this extraordinary gazette issued on the 17th of November by Prime Minister Ranil Wickremesinghe in his capacity as the Minister of National Policies and Economic Affairs. Now, this gazette is pertaining to Act number 12 of 2017, the new exchange control regulations, the new Foreign Exchange Act. Now, all this time what was in place, the law that was in place in the country was the Foreign Exchange Act of 1953. Now, imagine what will happen if you open up the markets completely and allow foreign exchange to freely enter and leave the country. Surely, this will have a devastating impact on the country's economy. Now, under the previous legislation, anyone caught doing something wrong in anything related to foreign exchange, there could be criminal charges brought against these individuals through the previous legislation. However, as the new legislation comes in, legal experts, lawyers and other pundits point out that these criminal charges that could be brought against these offences have been removed. Now, this act entered into law on the 28th of July, and through this, a majority of the powers are vested in the hands of the subject minister who controls the central bank. Now, usually when you think the minister who controls the central bank is the Minister of Finance. However, this government actually changed this trend. The central bank actually comes under the Prime Minister in his capacity as the Minister of National Policies and Economic Affairs. The Minister of Finance is there separately, and the state banks and other commercial banks are being handled by a completely different minister. Now, the current legislation gives sweeping powers to the subject minister who controls the central bank, and in this case it is this gentleman over here, Prime Minister Ranil Wickremesinghe. So this is the backdrop for our story. I'm going to go over to Faraz Shaukat Ali, our investigative journalist. Faraz, what is your take on this new legislation?
Thank you, Ramesh. The problem, there is a problem, and the problem is that there is an accumulation of power to just one person, the minister in charge of the subject of the central bank. It could be any minister, as long as the central bank comes under that person, then that person accumulates a lot of power. And we have to remember that in the past, the people of Sri Lanka obviously were fed up with this vast accumulation of power to one person, and we found that in the result of the presidential election in 2015. And so that remains, Ramesh, the problem. It is a question of an accumulation of power in which the line minister in charge of the central bank is able to overrule and direct the Monetary Board of Sri Lanka, who in effect run the central bank for the people of this country. So that is the main problem. It is an accumulation of power.
Now, Faraz, I'm going to interrupt you for a second. We are going to listen to the views that were expressed by President's Counsel Hemantha Warnakulusurya when he attended the Satana political debate program aired on Sirasa TV last night. Let's listen to what President's Counsel Warnakulusurya has to say, and let's return to the debate.
මෙම නඩු වාර්තාව මහාධිකරණයේ නඩුවක්. මෙහි විත්තිකරුවන් තිදෙනෙක් සිටිනවා.
This case is one that was taken up at the High Court. There are three parties named as suspects. One is Nexia Corporate Consultants Private Limited. The other is Lincoln Pearsena, and the third is Ravi Karunanayaka. This case was filed for bringing in funds in violation of Article 7.1 of the Exchange Control Act of Sri Lanka. When the justice retires, she delivers a ruling. There was a point raised in a discrepancy in the date that was mentioned. So she said, because of that error, the indictment cannot be taken ahead. There was a very lengthy verdict. In the end of that verdict, it says, accordingly, as the case cannot be taken forward based on the charges mentioned in the indictment, and as there is no result, taking legality into consideration, I decide to release the defendants. This is to release. If they are to be acquitted, the examination of evidence from the prosecution needs to be concluded, and if the judicial process has not been followed until that moment, the Attorney General will be given the legal right to file charges again. This verdict on the release is in effect for 20 years. Therefore, this will not be termed as a criminal case after 20 years. The charges can be filed again even by the next government. But what does the government of good governance do? They introduce something called the Foreign Exchange Act. This is the Foreign Exchange Act number 12 of 2017. What does the Act say? It says the Exchange Control Act is hereby repealed. At present, there is no case before court and a case cannot be filed. What will be the result? A person has made an application with the Supreme Court. The Gazette was issued on the 17th of November, not allowing the Attorney General to file such cases. Who introduced this Act? It was Ravi Karunanayaka. One introduces an act to conceal one's theft and thereafter acquits oneself.
අපේ රවි කරුණානායක ඇමතුමා තමන්ගේ පනතකින් තමන්ගේ හොරකම වහගෙන තමන්ගේ වරද වහගෙන තමන් නිදොස් කරනවා.
Now, the case that the President's Counsel was referring to was one which was brought against former Minister of Finance Ravi Karunanayaka. As we see here, this act was actually initially brought forward by former Minister Ravi Karunanayaka as well. So the timing, as President's Counsel Hemantha Warnakulusurya says, the timing of this act, of this legislation, is very peculiar. There is one article in this new legislation that caught my eye especially, that is article number 11 of this new legislation, which puts a time limit on investigating certain crimes. We are once again going to go to Faraz Shaukat Ali. Faraz, what is the meaning of these time limits that have been put in place to investigate certain crimes?
Well, what it means, Ramesh, is that now that the old Exchange Control Act has been repealed, they have imposed a time limit of 6 months, in which that is the time for any pending cases to be concluded, and it will be concluded under the old Act, the Exchange Control Act, which has just been repealed and replaced by the new Foreign Exchange Act. And so we have to bear in mind that this time limit of 6 months is pretty short. We have to also bear in mind that in our country, the law's delays means that there's every year on average around 900,000 cases are carried forward into the next court year, and that's the average. It fluctuates slightly up and down, but this time limit of 6 months is simply not on. It's too short, and it means that many things will just get swept under the carpet, and that is our great concern, Ramesh.
Faraz, thank you very much for that explanation. Now, these issues, these new legislations come through cabinet. We have public representatives who are, we believe, are somewhat knowledgeable in these areas. There might be some in the cabinet as well. The issue is, aren't these matters discussed in cabinet? Aren't these restrictions discussed or debated in cabinet? Now, make no mistake, we have no issues, we have no qualms or no issues with loosening up restrictions so that we allow our brothers and sisters working in other lands to send in their money freely to the country. The issue that we have is the timing of this legislation and whether this legislation is being brought in to cover up the issues or the crimes of friends of this government. All we can say is that we call on the President to focus his attention on this issue as well so that we can finally move on from this. Let's move on from this exchange control debate to one that is dominating the media sphere at present. Statements that were being made by State Minister Sujiva Senasinghe were discussed in Parliament today as well. So let's listen to the debate that happened in Parliament today and we'll continue our talk.
A parliamentarian has no right to criticize the president in parliament or elsewhere. Doing so violated the parliamentary constitution and standing orders. On the front page of the Lanka newspaper today, there is an article which says the Bond Commission is conspiring against the United National Party. A responsible state minister who is representing the government making such a statement brings disrepute to the president and his efforts. It brings disrepute to the commission. In addition, the state minister speaking to many popular channels said the speaker acts with favoration. Please announce your view. We believe you are independent, but the members in government claim you are biased. You are the Chief Justice of this Parliament. You are the Attorney General of this Parliament. You are the judge in Parliament. So if you are acting in that capacity in a biased manner, the question is, who are we to take our issues to? Recently, the newspaper published there were 2 calls between me and Arjun Aloysius, who is been accused of this theft and whom I have never associated in my life. This is being reported in an analysis. I made a request from the Bond Commission via my attorney Manjula Balasurya to have a copy of this analysis report and an opportunity to cross-examine that witness on that report. Today I received a response from the Commission stating it does not have the time to entertain my request. At this moment, my honour as an MP has been challenged. Do I not have an opportunity to speak of my innocence and my grievance? Is there no one to protect my honour? This is over to you. The Commission has reached the end of its tenure. Therefore, it is the government that needs to make a request to extend the tenure of the Commission to award an opportunity to the MPs. Since the matter involves Parliament, you as a Speaker can produce to Parliament the duration of phone calls that were made with Arjun Aloysius during the period of the investigation. The dates on which those calls were made and even the contents of those calls, that will resolve the matter. Therefore, Mr. Speaker, it is of paramount importance for the consistency of COPE. I request you to issue an order immediately to call for a report on the matter, because it is always discussed, even this morning.
Chaturanga, Faraz, now all these discussions about Sujiva Senasinghe came to the limelight following revelations that were made at the Presidential Commission that is looking into the bond matter. And earlier, yesterday, Sujiva Senasinghe held a media briefing, and the debate that we just saw were things that followed after his comments that he made during this media briefing. But if I remember correctly, Faraz, didn't Sujiva Senasinghe write a book regarding this bond matter?
That's right, Ramesh, and that's the book. Sujiva Senasinghe wrote, and it's called At the Netta. And what is interesting about this book now is that Mr. Senasinghe says that some of these telephone calls that he made to Arjuna Aloysius, Arjuna Mahendran and so on, because he was writing this book, this very book, and he needed their input to understand matters like how the bonds were awarded or issued, and also about insider trading. He said insider trading, although in Sri Lanka there is no insider trading as per se when it comes to the issuance of bonds. But the significant part of this is that this book was published in 2015, around July, August in 2015, ahead of those elections that we had at that time. But the 62 telephone calls between Arjuna Aloysius and Sujiva Senasinghe, 62 telephone calls were made in 2016 during the currency of the Second Corp Commission, and that we need an explanation from him and nobody else, because we don't really know what he means. All we know is that the 62 calls were made in 2016, whereas the book was published in July, August 2015.
They were slinging mud at me in a very ugly manner. They used a debate in Parliament. They didn't put any of my statements. They used only the other member. This is only one particular channel.
Now we heard the comments made by State Minister Sujiva Senasinghe. We know that the State Minister is a very busy individual. He has to go to Parliament, he has media briefings to organize, and he might not have caught our actual broadcast. He might have not seen the debate that was aired by us. So for his sake and for all our viewers, we are going to once again replay the debate between State Minister Sujiva Senasinghe and UPFA parliamentarian D.V. Chanaka from Parliament. Take a look.
The bond scam, the Prime Minister's ministry. He brought the central bank under himself. It was then that the largest theft in Sri Lanka's history occurred. And then all of the MPs, including the Prime Minister, tried to justify it. As a result, Sri Lanka has suffered a loss of billions. Today they are taxing the people to cover these losses. The loss is 1 trillion rupees. Minister Sujiva Senasinghe, I am not the one saying this. It was said by Minister Lakshmana Yapabewardena. The tax revenue raised since 2014 is equal to the loss of 1 trillion rupees from the bond scam. So all the taxes have been imposed to cover the loss of the bond scam. In 2015, the Corp Committee chaired by D. Gunasekara compiled a report on the bond scam. Sujiva Senasinghe was also a member of this committee. But who did he go to town for? This is the first time I have seen him go to court as a lawyer. He went to court seeking an injunction against the release of this report. Are you saying that we need to go to court to see all the people who go to court? We saw you file your case on TV. Eventually, you withdrew this case. For shame. In the end, all you did was go marketing for Arjuna Aloysius.
Namal Rajapaksa was the one who went shopping. Ask your boss, Namal Rajapaksa.
Hold on, Minister. I will tell you whether it was Namal Rajapaksa or Sujiva Senasinghe that went shopping. He was the first person to go to court seeking an injunction against the release of this report. Was it Namal Rajapaksa? It was Sujiva Senasinghe. Sujiva Senasinghe is the one who tried to cover it up. Later, he wrote a book. Wait, I will also tell you the details of the book he wrote to cover up the scam. The Truth of the Bond Scam. This is the book written by Sujiva Senasinghe, noting that there had been no theft at the central bank. He should not be sent to the commission. Given what we know about the calls they received from Arjuna Aloysius, they should be sent to prison. You should go to prison over this, not only to the commission. You must repay all this money. Here is what he has written in this book on the bond scam. It reads as follows. If you require a certain item and your father-in-law's shop has that item, if you pay the marked price and purchase that item, then what sort of common sense would lead a person to call that a deal? Was this your thinking when writing this book? Is this like going to a shop and buying a loaf of bread? Did the son-in-law go to the father-in-law's shop and buy a loaf of bread? This is a loss of 1 trillion rupees. A loss of trillion rupees.
Everyone in the COPE committee, including Sunil Handunetti, carried out an investigation and compiled a report. Nowhere in the report does it say that the bond issuance was fraudulent. They say that Arjuna Mahendran is responsible, but nowhere does it say that the fraud has been committed. I ask you, if you have any knowledge of the law, why is there no such mention?
Honourable Chairman, I think Sujeeva Senasinghe is still joking. He still hasn't stopped marketing for Arjun Aloysius. The entire country knows that a theft has been committed. Everyone in the country apart from you accepts that a theft was committed. Over 50% of the cabinet ministers accept that a theft was committed. Even the backbenchers accept it. But you cannot accept it because of your connection with Arjun Aloysius. This is where you get the money for to print your cutouts.
I asked him a question. This is nothing to shout about. I asked why it has not been mentioned by COPE if everyone knows that it is a theft. It is a simple question.
He is joking. Then COPE could have punished them. When you see the bond investigation, don't you realize that fraud has been committed?
COPE can't mete out punishment, but COPE can say that a fraud has been committed. I am asking you this. There is no need to shout. Why was this not mentioned?
Honourable Chairman, I am not a member of COPE. They were the ones who were there. So they are the ones who are saying that theft has not been committed. First of all, Honourable Chairman, even his appointment as a member of COPE is a major mistake. How did he become a member? He removed a former member and replaced him. He met the Prime Minister and asked to be included, and the other member was removed. What was the reason for this? Their close association with the accused. He has written a book claiming that no theft was committed. He went to court claiming no theft was committed. In the first place, it is wrong for such a person to become a member of COPE. Aloysius spoke to 5 members of COPE. I will tell you how many calls he received. Sujeeva received 62 calls. There have been more than 200 calls, but these 62 calls were made while COPE was in session.
Namal received 800 calls. What is wrong with us contacting a private individual while in COPE? Can you tell me the legalese? He is not an accused. If we can speak to the other officials, then what is wrong with speaking to him? Please explain the crime.
Honourable Chairman, it is a major ethical issue. This is like saying that the judge maintained contact with the accused. This is the same problem. You went to COPE with the instructions of Arjun Aloysius.
COPE does not have the mandate to make a private citizen an accused. We have no right. Since you are speaking from your mouth and not from your backside, please use your brain. Do not display your stupidity.
You speak of fools, but we have not stolen like you. We have not stolen like you. 52 calls have been made. What did you speak about with Arjun Aloysius? Over 200 phone calls. A theft has been made. Thief. You are involved in this theft too. This is how you funded your cutouts in 2015. This is why you wrote a book. But you cannot cover up the theft. It is all in the open now. The whole country knows about you and how you took money from Arjun Aloysius.
Well, that's it for tonight from the Newsfirst Centre. Farah Shaukat, thank you very much for joining us from the Red Room. Chaturanga, it's back to you at Studio 1.
The President of the Asian Development Banks called on President Sirisena today to discuss the country partnership strategy for development assistance. The ADB has allocated a sum of $425 billion for Sri Lanka for the period of 2018 and 2022.
Vice President of the Asian Development Bank said that ADB would extend full support to the economic development plans initiated by the government of President Maithripala Sirisena. He emphasized the need for speeding up the capital market development to enhance economic growth. The ADB Vice President underscored the importance of Sri Lanka's infrastructure development financing mechanism and added that ADB would provide assistance to infrastructure development. The President briefed the ADB delegation about the economic development policies with special emphasis on poverty alleviation and Grama Shakti People's Movement and urged the ADB to extend support to these initiatives. The ADB has provided assistance worth $9 billion in the past 50 years.
The interim injunction order issued today in relation to local government elections was discussed in Parliament today.
I believe it is the responsibility of the government to call for elections as soon as possible. Mr. Deputy Speaker, this was delayed for 2 years. Now we have entered the third year of this delay. In such a backdrop, a serious controversy arises within the country. This is a simple election for a Pradesh Sabha. The government is vested with the responsibility because it is the government that delayed the election.
The government has clearly put forward the ministry secretaries and close associates of the minister for this case. Not only that, Mr. Speaker, there is a vacancy in the Supreme Court and there will be another vacancy in the near future. This case is being used as a competition in the Court of Appeal to make an appointment for that vacancy. Therefore, it is clear to us this case is the result of the government's program to delay the elections.
I want to say that we also want the elections held as early as possible and we oppose the abuse of process of courts in this regard.
Everyone who was in a party to bring this government to power on the 8th of January 2015 must be held responsible for electing a spineless government that cannot even hold an election for a Pradesh Sabha.
We have no desire to postpone the elections. The flaws in delimitation was the cause for the delay.
Minister Faisal Mustafa purposely allowed this gazette with flaws to lead this issue. He did this on purpose. There is a very clear important case on the elections of this country. The minister has been named as a respondent. Where is the minister? He had gone overseas. He will return on Sunday. It is clear who filed this case, who appeared for them. An attorney who once served as junior to Faisal Mustafa, the father of Faisal Mustafa, is working on this case. It is Faisal who deployed this attorney for the complaint. Do we need such a minister in Parliament? If he does not resign from this Parliament, we will have a way to force him to resign.
I entered the delimitation and appeals process with a genuine intention. I handled the tasks that were required for the Commission of Elections. Therefore, if any person goes to court and obtains a decision, I cannot be held responsible. There is a judiciary in this country. There is a law in the country. If a person has followed and acted according to the law, we as a ministry can only obtain legal advice to ensure that interim injunction order is removed. I have always said I have not fallen short of my duty. However, anybody has a right to go to court against my duty. As the case in court, I cannot comment on it. However, we will seek the advice of the Attorney General and act swiftly on this. I state this with responsibility.
I was not involved in the task of postponing the elections. I must also state measures will be taken to hold the elections as soon as possible. Though there is a judicial matter, we as a party will provide our complete support to ensure that it is concluded swiftly. I wish to announce to MP Andhra Kumar Dissanayake. Our aspirations is to conclude the elections for all Pradesh Sabhas, see the new chairman take oaths and to ensure they have their first ever meeting before the single and tower New Year. Therefore, we will take every possible measure to ensure that this happens.
And that's a wrap of primetime news for tonight. For the Newsfirst team, I'm Dasni Athauda.
I'm Saturang Hapwarati. Before we go, a quick reminder that you can log on to our website www.newsfirst.lk for more stories. Thank you very much for watching.